chaos. We've heard about dysfunction, but the details in this book are like nothing we've ever heard before, especially since they're coming from his inner circle, the people who are working with him day in and day out. Some are former administration officials, but there are also people like the present Chief of Staff, John Kelly, the present Defense Secretary, James Mattis, and you hear words like erratic, unhinged, alarmed, just over and over again. So it's not just one person, it's from dozens of people. The way I would describe it is, in Watergate, Bob Woodward had Deep Throat as his source. He has in this book dozens of deep throats. The other thing that happened that was interesting is President Trump is clearly upset about this book, and on August 14th, he called Bob Woodward when he found out it was coming out, and Bob, with the president's permission, recorded the phone call, and we're going to play you a clip of it. This is where it becomes apparent to the president that Bob has sources inside the White House.
I've got to go talk to people and see them outside of the White House and outside of their offices, and gained a lot of insight and documentation, and it's a tough look at the world and your administration and you.
Right. Well, I assume that means it's going to be a negative book, but I'm sort of 50% used to that. That's all right. Some are good and some are bad. Sounds like this is going to be a bad one.
It's really a turning point where Bob says a tough look at you, and even though the president's sort of funny, he says 50% of the time, you can hear that his tone of voice changes.
At one point, you hear Bob Woodward on the phone call saying, "I broke my spear on it trying to get to you." So clearly, he's talked to several people, and the president keeps saying he wishes he talked to him, but says he's ready for another bad book. This is the president. We're still waiting on a tweet. Go ahead.
Right. So if you read the transcript, which I believe we now have posted on CNN.com, we have the transcript of the whole 11-minute call. What you see is that Bob requested an interview with the president through 6 different people, including Kellyanne Conway, who gets on the phone call in the middle of it and admits that Bob put in a request. And then throughout the call, President Trump keeps saying, well, I didn't hear about it. And then Bob says to him, well, didn't Senator Lindsey Graham
And he says, oh, yeah, he did very quickly he did.
Right, and then he says, that's true. So there's one of those Trump 180s.
Yes. Jamie, don't go far, because I know you have all these details. I want to bring in John Dean's with me, Jeff Toobin, Gloria Borger, on just some of these nuggets. So Jeffrey Toobin, let me go to you. Pop those glasses on. Here's my question. One of these scenes in this book, according to what Jamie has, is, there's this John Dowd is convinced that Trump is going to perjure himself if he goes and testifies in front of the special counsel, Bob Mueller. And so he does this mock interview with the president, which, according to Woodward, the president fails this. Still, though, the president wants to testify, and at some point he says, what, you think I was struggling? He was, because he failed the test. So Dowd and Jay Sekulow go over to Bob Mueller with the goal to communicate to the special counsel that there is no way this president can testify because he is incapable of telling the truth. Why would they go to Mueller to explain that?
Well, it is peculiar at one level because you certainly wouldn't tell the prosecutor, my client's about to lie to you, but I think it is just one of the many reasons why the lawyers for the president have basically been avoiding this whole issue of testifying before Mueller's investigation. They have nominally said they're negotiating, but I don't think anybody really believes this interview was ever going to take place. And look, this is the president that the Washington Post said has told 4,000 lies since he's become president. I mean, the fact that he might not be a very good witness is not shocking.
But to hear it from his own lawyers, Jeff Toobin,
You know,
who go to Bob Mueller to explain this.
Well, there are no greater realists in the world than criminal defense lawyers. They are not starry-eyed about their own clients. Now, admittedly, it's unusual to say it to the prosecutor, but still, if you're not going to testify anyway, you're not really incriminating your client because he hasn't said anything to the lawyer, to the prosecutors yet. I mean, it just underlines the fact that everyone around the president, his lawyers, obviously his chief of staff here, Gary Cohn, the economic advisor, they all think he's crazy. They all think he's not responsible. They think he's like a fifth grade child. I mean, this is all shocking, but it's not surprising when we have heard inside accounts of how the president behaves in office.
Right, Secretary Mattis saying he understands at a 5th or 6th grade level when they all got together last July at the Pentagon trying to explain the importance of allies and diplomacy. Gloria, your biggest takeaway.
Well, I guess the biggest takeaway that I have is the extraordinary line from the Woodward book when he says that what was going on at the White House amounted to no less than an administrative coup d'etat. And you have details of Gary Cohn, the former economic advisor, taking a paper off the president's desk about stopping a trade agreement with South Korea that he felt could endanger, and others felt could endanger national security. So they basically took it off his desk, and John Porter was complicit in this, the former staff secretary, who then was asked to leave for other reasons. But you have this sense of people trying to save the presidency, or save the president from himself, or try and protect him from Bob Mueller, which is what they were trying to do if that conversation took place with Mueller. You know, I was talking to an attorney with some knowledge of this today, who said to me, "Look, very often you'll go in, you'll talk to a prosecutor and say, you know, my client, they can't testify. They're too anxious. They're too nervous. They get too jumbled. They don't get their facts straight. You know, that happens sometimes. But what they had in this case was a president telling them, according to Woodward, and indeed according to a lot of our own reporting, that he wanted to go mano a mano with Mueller because he didn't have anything to hide, because there wasn't any so-called collusion, because it's all a hoax and a witch hunt, and they had to try and convince the president that, in fact, he would be a terrible witness on his own behalf, and that he should not testify before Mueller. And they had a president saying to them, you know, politically, I cannot do that. I need to testify. It would look terrible if I didn't. So you see the internal struggles going on in this White House, and you get a sense of people trying to protect the presidency itself.
Makes you wonder how many people may or may not have jobs in the coming days, depending on the president's reaction to this whole thing. Mr. Dean, your thoughts on all this?
Well, I agree. My most striking one is the example you used.
The Gary Cohn moment, the swiping of the memo.
Well, the swiping and the
back and forth with Dowd and Sekulow.
Exactly.
Which we haven't pointed out, by the way, if I can follow up, and I'd love your 2 cents. Then when they take it to Mueller, essentially saying he's a liar, we can't bring him to you, Mueller then says, I need the president's testimony. What was his intent on Comey? I want to see if there was corrupt intent. What does that tell you about the special counsel? Is that obstruction?
No, well, it tells you what he's looking at, for sure, but it also tells you he can't really finish his look unless he does probe a little bit and find out what was the real intent. I think he's got a lot of evidence of criminal intent. The Lester Holt interview, the tweets are there.